You gotta wash your ass.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's one fucking hour time. I, of course, am your host, Evan Husney, and this is the show where we talk about one goddamn movie, and we have just one fucking hour to do it. And it's episode 89 time, and I'm here with, to my left, we got Mr. Tom Fitzgerald. What's going on, Tom?
Bottoms up.
Ooh, Kombucha Tom today? Is that what we got?
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
There we go.
Cheers.
All right. And our other co-host with the mostest here on the right, we got, as per usual here, Mr. Marcus Herring. What's going on, Marcus?
What's up? Yes, we are now sponsored by kombucha. So
Yeah,
that's
right.
great. So
Yeah.
just put in your order code
Total
one fucking
coincidence
hour
I'm
at
drinking,
kombucha.com.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what's
I mean,
going-
if we were, doing product placement, that'd be really sad.
Yeah. That's a perfect shot right there. All right,
Wayne's World.
screenshot that. Yeah, of course. Right. All right, and we have finally on the program, long awaited, long rumored, long teased special guest here. He's made an appearance briefly on the Patreon for our most recent bonus episode, but he's here on the main program making his big first appearance debut. And of course, we're talking about David Chien. Welcome to the show. David, what's going on, man?
Reporting for duty.
Yeah.
I love it.
Here we
David
go.
Chien, one of the good guys,
Dude.
everybody. This is very fun. And
Thanks
it's
for
about
having me.
damn time.
It is. It is about damn time. So
Not since the Things commentary have we congregated.
dude,
Right.
dude. Yeah. Shout out to our episode in the archives on Things, the Canadian shot on Super 8 crazy movie from 1989. But when I released that movie on DVD many moons ago, Tom and David Chien did the commentary to the movie, to a movie which they had never seen before, which is a kind of a unique approach to a commentary track. But it worked out very well. So thank you
And it
guys
was like
for
3 a.m. It was a classic moment.
It's so good. It's really
It was
great.
really
It's a really fun time. So, all right. So what are we talking about tonight? Of course, I mentioned it's episode 89, and we are getting into, well, this whole month we are covering films from 1999, and this is the second bite at that apple. We'll be talking about apples later. This is Alexander Payne's Election. All right. So one fucking hour on Election, of course, from 99. But before we get into that, just a quick little bit of business, a quick shout out to the One Fucking Hour Patreon. I mentioned it earlier. Patreon.com/1fucking-hour is where you can sign up. It's just $5 a month to become a Moman over there on Patreon, or you can sign up for $10 a month and you can get the double Moman with cheese if you want. You can pick your patronage, same benefits. But basically what we have going on there is we're doing bonus episodes, and we're going to be actually recording soon our next bonus episode, which is just sort of a free form, us one fucking hour talking about the year of 1999 in film. We're just going to be rapid firing all the movies that we love, hate, and otherwise on there. So that'll be the only place to see that. And of course, we've been dropping audio commentary tracks, feature-length audio commentaries. That's the only place to get those. So you can either head over to the Patreon, or you can scroll under this video if you're watching on YouTube, click the join button. Same price, same perks, same shit. That's where you get all that stuff. So appreciate all you guys who signed up thus far. We have a whole host of new members. Pretty sweet. New moments. Kicking it off here. So we appreciate that. So
Welcome.
yeah. So, all right. So I'm ready just to get this show on the road. I'm chomping at the bit to talk about this all week because I recently rewatched it and it kills still to this day. Very excited to talk about it, to get into it. Are you guys ready? Should we start the fucking clock?
Yeah.
Do it.
All right. Okay. So I'm in hotel mode right now, everybody. So things are a little janky. I'm in Denver right now.
Fancy.
So I'm in hotel mode.
Things to do in Denver.
There's not
when
much.
you're,
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that from 1999? Sorry, go ahead.
All right, here we go. Let's start the clock. Here we go. All right. Boom. All right. Let's kick this off, of course, with a synopsis. And, hey, man, shout out. David and I, when we met whatever it is, fucking 20 years ago, whatever it is now, when we first met, David and I were obsessed with the Criterion Collection. That's how we bonded, was around our love of Criterion DVDs. Probably sub number 75. That's how far back we go. We're probably like 75ers when we met.
Wow.
So
more manageable.
We were already well established friends when like the Blowout cover dropped, and we were like
that was
at a
way
theater
later.
lobby.
Oh, dude, we were cry crazy. So, all right. So this, of course, is the synopsis for Election, taken from the recently released Criterion release of it. So here we go. All right. Perky, overachieving high schooler Tracy Flick, of course, played by Reese Witherspoon, gets on the nerves of social studies teacher Jim McAllister, Matthew Broderick, to begin with. But after she launches her campaign for student body president and his personal life starts to fall apart, things spiral out of control. In Alexander Payne's satire Election, the teacher becomes unhealthily obsessed with cutting his student down to size, covertly backing a spoiler candidate to stop her from steamrolling to victory, and putting in motion a series of dirty tricks and reckless promises with uncanny real-world political parallels. Adapting a then unpublished novel by Tom Perrotta? David?
Parada?
Yeah, Tom Perrotta. Payne grounds the absurdity of his central dynamic in the recognizable. The setting is his hometown, Omaha, Nebraska, and the accomplished cast is rounded out with non-professionals and distills his closely observed take on deeply flawed humanity to its bitter but stealthily sympathetic essence. So there you go. That is Election. But let's get into... I'm going to throw it right to you, David, as the guest. When I mentioned to you that we wanted to cover films from 99 on the show, and I was like, you can pick any movie from 99 and you can bring it on the show, and you picked this movie. So tell us a little bit about why Election was the choice.
It was quite serendipitous because I think I had just rewatched it, the Criterion Blu-ray, about a week before you brought up the 1999 idea for the month. And I had actually been putting together a list of films to present to you guys as far as what we could go over. And Election was always floating around the top. I was able to see the movie when it first came out in theaters, thinking it was going to be like a studio Todd Solondz film. And in fact, at the time when I watched it in, I think, May of 99, I think I was a sophomore in high school. And I distinctly remember there weren't many people there for the Friday or Saturday afternoon show. And it notably did not do very well in its initial run. But and I think that we can get into that later, but it's an MTV Films presentation, and it's not at all what I think the MTV crowd was ready for in 1999. But I guess the core of it is Election is, I think, unanimously considered a good, if not great film. Mm-hmm. And most people's takes are not wildly different from one another. And yet, rewatching it recently and thinking about our discussion today, it occurred to me that I think there's a lot of areas of Election, even beyond Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor and the author Tom Perrotta. I don't think that they even realized what they were kind of tapping into with this story. And so it's a good example, as is the case with many films from 1999, where the greatness is kind of widely understood, but I don't know if a lot of those secondary or even like third level details of how the film functions have been adequately explored.
It's a good choice. Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things too, where it's like, I hadn't revisited this movie in a long time, probably over 10 years, and seeing it again for the first time in a long time, it was like, wow, this is really so well done. Great performances, the natural sort of, background actors who are the real students in the school and everything. There's this naturalism and authenticity to it, and also just perfectly captures that these types of kind of, lonely characters from that small, boring, small town life where, they mostly find themselves getting into stupidity just out of like, these kind of stupid, weird situations based out of boredom, dumb mistakes and choices. And I love movies that that used to be about that sort of thing. Cause
I know foibles and folly.
Yes.
I think,
right.
Not to get totally sidetracked, but I think that actually it was very innovative then, but then it almost immediately got watered down, and it became like films that were like sub The Office, like there was something called like Grand Rapids or something like that, with somebody from The Office, and like
Well,
that tone of like regular, like the foibles of the regular person.
Yeah.
It didn't have the bite over the past 10 or so years or 15 years
Yeah.
that this film does.
And
it
then-
has gotten out there, but it's not really as it objectifies the average person. It's like
Well-
a showbiz Hollywood version of it.
Right.
This is he's coming from his own place, Alexander Payne.
And then
That's just what I say.
Marcus's favorite movie, fucking Napoleon Dynamite came in and just really hit the reset button.
finally delivered what everybody was hoping. Yeah.
And changed the whole landscape, and then we got
That's funny,
Juno and
yeah.
everything. And sorry, Marcus.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
So that whole sort of, I think what Tom's tapping into is that sort of comedy of errors type thing, right? It's like that isn't really like an old form of story, like goes back to like Shakespeare, right? Where it's just bad things happen. We delight in watching one bad thing after another happen to a main character. So
Yeah.
Follow.
yeah, it does seem like it has lost a little something. It needs some new style injected into it or something to help resurrect it for
Well,
2023.
it's super special. But Marcus, you sort of do you have like an origin story with this movie in terms of when you first saw it? or
Yeah,
anything?
this is a weird one for me because like sometimes like you don't want to know anything about a movie before you go see it, right? A lot of people are like that, and more often than not in this day and age, I find myself reading the Wikipedia article before I watch the movie, right?
Whoa.
But I do that. No time to waste these days. But this is one of the only movies I think where I actually read the screenplay before I watched the movie.
Whoa.
It's very weird because my uncle, who was a director, gave me a subscription to that screenwriting magazine called Scenario. And the first issue was Election on the cover.
Wow.
And so it had the entire screenplay in there. And then it had a long interview with Payne and the co-writer Taylor. And so I was at the right age to kind of like soak it all up, and I don't even think it was released, I was in Montana, so I don't think it was released in theaters there. So I had to wait until home video to see it. So a lot of it was just playing out in my head. Tracy Flick and like the guy washing his ass in the shower. Like I knew about that before I had a vision of what it would look like with Matthew Broderick washing his ass in the shower before I even saw the movie. So, but no, it was great to. I didn't get to see it until it came out in VHS, and there was like the that awesome poster, which is a really great poster too, where like Tracy's got her mouth open and Broderick's like inside there. It's a pretty good visual.
Totally.
So, but it was nice to see this new Blu-ray transfer because it never dawned on me that it was shot on film. It was really interesting to see the film grain and
Love it.
and just the because it felt so fresh, new. It felt too new in '99, too fresh. And so to go back now, I can see the decades of of filmmaking that have passed, and it has a charm. So it's fun.
Yeah, and just real quick, like I, like watching this movie again, and I also love Citizen Ruth too. I think that's a great movie as well. And I love his sort of like Omaha exploitation, if you will, sort of look at this sort of small town story. Because to me, I talk about being from Minnesota a lot on the show, and it's so similar. Like I went to the high school that looks exactly the same to that high school. Even the pizza chain that I went to, Godfather's Pizza, is in the movie. Like so much of it to me rings like my experience, and in the late '90s. But it's so great to see a movie with that 35 millimeter film grain. With shots of like a guy throwing things out of a dirty refrigerator in a high school. It's great.
Fluorescent lighting. Yeah.
Yes, it's great. And I love how he leaned into all that. And it also kind of did feel like a little bit like a graphic novel from that era too, if you guys know what I mean. Like with the stylized sequences that it sort of has too. A lot of different visual sort of optical gags and throughout the whole movie too. Right. It just kind of felt like one of those kind of towny Daniel Clowes-ish sort of like graphic novels.
And soon after we had Ghost World, which is I'm the biggest Dan Clowes fan you probably ever know, and I'm feeling iffy always about the film Ghost World. Anyway.
Sure.
But the only thing I wanted to bring up was rewatching it yesterday.
Yeah.
I was reminded of this giddy joy that I would have because as the years went on in this 98 to 2002-ish period, it was becoming commonplace, and I was really expecting films to have, I don't know how to put it quite, but I just call it like a surprising stylistic pop here and there, flourishes.
Yep.
And in this film, for example, what I'm saying is it cuts to like a narration monologue with with an accompanying montage of like Tracy Flick and like her accomplishments. So it's like like a jazzy montage of
With the newspapers.
graphics of her. Yeah, her newspaper clippings and her yearbook and stuff like that. And that was not like wild. It was common because Fight Club would do that.
Yep.
And then adaptation's another good example where it's
Sure.
like I'm watching a movie, a narrative, it's characters, it's people, it's dialogue, and then suddenly you're looking at like the birth of civilization. And so all I'm saying is I simply miss it because something happened here. And this is maybe a reoccurring theme, but like right around like fucking Little Miss Sunshine or something, this kind of middle brow milk toast watered down naturalism came in, and then like movie stars started playing like truck stop waitresses, Jennifer Aniston, like on her third shift, like on smoke break, and I'm just like I really hate indies, from the last 20 years, because one of the big things that was just choked out was that great giddy surprise. Or one last thing, because we're talking about 99. Is just like that videotape that they're showing in Malkovich about the history of our weird little floor that has a very low ceiling, and I was just like, and I smoked pot back then, and I just remember like it was just like a cheap thrill. It was exciting. It was like and you know what? It's like these flourishes you will not find in a mainstream film, and so that was a totem of that, and this was absolutely another one. You know, like. It cuts to his dream sequence of being in an Italian sports car. It has that ending of like 16 millimeter, day at work in Manhattan. Remember that at the very end, So that was my big takeaway is just the stylistic fun to be had. And it's just, am I wrong? It just
you're so right.
Out. It got
and I do think
out,
it does seem like Little Miss Sunshine is like that does seem like the culprit. Like, because that movie always felt like people being like indie movies were like filled with all this inventiveness and people wanting to be creative and with a low budget and wanting to emulate the films that they loved. And Little Miss Sunshine always felt like, how can we make an indie movie? You know, like it was
committee.
It felt so
also
calculated.
kind of Garden State too. Not to spend the hour on this, but
All right.
but again, I'm lauding Election.
We have a lot of Garden State fans.
We do. Okay, wait.
Sorry. But we can move on. But I'm just saying, like that was one of my big takeaways with Election, and Payne has maintained that.
Yes.
Kind of pleasant, surprising quality often.
Sure.
I've seen in like About Schmidt, for example. Anyway,
sure.
that was
all the stuff. The great freeze frames are so cool in this, and they use them a lot, and for different effects, like the comedic effects when they eyes
like a
are
perfect,
half closed. The first one, which is like,
I know it's the perfect, like hilarious freeze frame of her face in that. It's a really great touch. Yeah, this movie is littered with very fun, darkly funny and stylistically innovative, also kind of kitschy. Like it's got a lot of just amazing choices going on, which we're going to get into.
It's very playful. That's
but before it is. But before we do, let's tag in our guest here for Christ's sake. Okay, so David, you did a lot of prep for this show. And you went back and you looked at the source material. So do you know the sort of genesis of like how, the novel versus the movie, how they came together, what's going on here?
As far as I know, the novel was optioned before it got published, and so it was already in development before it hit bookstores. And I think by the time it was for sale, I want to say that Payne had already been in that, not quite in pre-production, but was in that discussion, in that flow, especially with all the buzz coming off of Citizen Ruth.
Right.
And I had made an effort to skim through the novel many years ago, just to kind of get a sense if it was parsed out the same way, because Parada's approach is very much maintained in the film, where you get multiple narrators. Every chapter is Tracy Flick or Paul Metzler or Mr. M. And but what's really intriguing is that the structure of that multiple narrator setup in the book, you don't even really learn about the affair that Tracy Flick has with that teacher who, interestingly enough, is the only character whose name is different in the movie versus the book. In the book, he's Jack, and in the movie, he's Dave Novotny, and such an amazing character.
Dude.
I won't reiterate what his first line in the movie is.
Can I?
But
it's a classic introduction to it.
And it's not in the book, that line.
Oh, really?
Oh, interesting.
Dude, it is so amazing. Just real quick, put a pin in where you are for a second. So amazing.
Her pussy gets so wet, you can't believe it.
Hard cut to Foxy Lady Jam, you know,
I know.
in the basement,
in the garage,
or whatever. And dude,
the hell?
and just real quick, we'll get right back to where you were. But man, that's what also makes this movie great, aside from the stylistic flourishes, is the idea like a character like Dave and how he's so in tune with a guy like Dave. And I think being from Omaha, a place like that, you know, you meet people like this and you really understand the quirks and, you know, everything about someone that is like that. And that character is such an incredible performance by that actor. And he's so amazing. And like the fact that he's driving like a whatever, like a Mustang, you know, it just all the choices they use to bring that character to life.
Quickly build this character.
To quickly build him
come
is
to life.
perfect. Yeah. David, continue. Sorry.
Well, so in light of researching for this episode, I wanted to really sit down and properly read carefully the book, because one thing that I didn't want to do is just come on the show to just do a bunch of comparisons between the book and the movie, because obviously there are going to be differences. But this was an example where the more I thought about all the changes, which were pretty significant, or the things that were specifically unique to the film, I think it said a lot about both Payne as a director and then Payne and his co-writer Jim Taylor as screenwriters, because they've worked together, I think, on 4 out of the 8 films that that Payne has made. And it's interesting too when you consider, we always think of Alexander Payne as a writer-director, but something like The Holdovers, the new film out now, he didn't write. You know, he was part of the genesis of coming up with the premise, but another screenwriter took the reins.
Wow.
And you wouldn't know it from watching the film. It feels like Payne wrote this with Jim Taylor. It has very much his DNA, or their DNA. But I mean, just to start off with an obvious one, the scene where Jim McAllister comes in with the bee sting and Tracy offers him the pick flick cupcake. Well, in the book, he doesn't even get the bee sting.
Yeah.
And they never even make reference in the book about any of the slogans. Pick flick is not mentioned as being on the cupcake. Wow. Paul Metzler, you betzer, you know. Those great little details in the universe of that school were really from scratch, which I found really astounding, because you would think all these big ticket items in the film that you remember would easily be from the book. And again, kind of thinking about the differences in the movie, I think the movie is much more effective at it being distilled to basically a rivalry between Tracy and Jim.
Yeah.
When the book, actually, you could even make the case that the book's central character at times could be Tammy. And the way that Tammy, not that she's sidelined, but you know, her somewhat abbreviated role once her third party interference kind of moves away in the second half of the story, it really works for the movie. But in the book, it's very moving how much more about Tammy's life you learn.
Yeah, and that's really interesting too, because I listened to the commentary track that Alexander Payne did on this movie before we were recording tonight. And he was talking about how the character he was most protective over, the character he was most, probably even the most invested in, was Tammy. That was the one to him that was almost the core of the movie in a lot of ways. And it's amazing. And you know, she was, you know, as an actress, like someone, I think he got a tape of her performance and just kind of, you know, fell in love with, you know, just her look and like the braces and everything. And she's just a natural, you know, she'd only done like, you know, maybe one small thing before this, but she's incredible. And like, and we'll talk a lot more about this as we go along, but you know, there's so many obsessive, weird, esoteric details that Alexander Payne put throughout this whole entire movie that only he would notice or care about. Like, for example, when you meet Tammy and she's like in bed, sort of making out with that other woman, the way
Lisa?
the cut, Lisa, right. When we're introduced to that, the way that those two cuts are with them in bed, like the actual composition actually spells like the letter T. It forms the letter T for Tammy, you know? It's just like these really obsessive
Kubrick
cool
over
things.
here.
It is. And it's cool. It's cool. It's a really cool.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love Lisa's look. She looks like I had about 15 Lisas in my high school.
Yeah.
They all had the exact
It's
look.
an archetype that is otherwise unseen.
Yeah.
But they're
A lot of
all over
these
the
are.
place, and they're dope, you know. I love her speech, you know.
Tammy's?
It's interesting to hear that he really is on Team Tammy somewhat.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, David, it's like she does kind of wrap up rather quickly in the mechanics of the plot, and then just gets a little sort of a punchline, like wink. Oh, what a punishment to go to an all-girls school! You know,
It's awesome.
which I'm fine with. But it really, I would have liked more. And I feel like maybe
Yeah.
if there was like a longer cut, there would be more of her.
Yeah.
Because it kind of feels like
Yeah.
there's like I am mystified.
Yeah.
She is definitely a big time rebel in an otherwise very straight up, boring, super middle class family. You know, her brother and the parents, and she's a fucking rebel. And I'd love to see more of her.
And that is a clear archetype too of like where you see in the movie that they live in the housing development. You know, they're living in the McMansion sort of suburbs of Omaha, which is so true to my upbringing. Like that area, those suburbs are so 100% right on the money.
So
And I think
upper
they're
middle class because the dad owns the concrete factory, right?
right,
Yeah.
which also
He's
creates
a rich kid.
totally,
Paul.
which also creates
they're
that
doing well.
economic disparity between Paul and Tammy and Tracy. You know, which is I think was supposed to be a bigger part of the movie. They trimmed down on, but
because
yeah.
Tammy, you know, like if I'm not getting this wrong, it's like she's being raised by a single mother who's like kind of just making ends meet, right?
yeah,
Right.
Like
yeah.
they're not doing great. Like
Right.
they're kind of on the border of like the lower middle class almost.
There's an alternate ending that exists out there, and you can watch
Right.
it. We may talk about it later compared to the ending. But there's one detail where you actually go to Tammy's house. You see it from the Tracy's house. Sorry, you see it from the exterior.
Yeah.
and it is like just kind of a very modest. Very modest, like a single car garage type home. You know, you can tell them, and it looks like it's kind of the alternate cuts like so fuzzy and old, but it looks like it looks like in the distance you can see the concrete factory. So it's like in the shadows of that.
okay.
You know?
Wow.
Well, I'll jump in and say that the wildest change from the book to the film, I think, is that the custodian, who is very memorable as far as his intense passive aggressive anger towards Jim and seeing the
Deadpan
Chinese.
stare.
The deadpan stare, and who Evan would know from the commentary was the actual custodian for the production offices
Yeah.
when they were on location. Because I mean, you can't get a better actor than that guy's face.
Dude, no, incredible. Like all they did is change out his glasses, you know, but that he's the guy who was in their film office as the janitor. And
That feels very Eastbound and Down. I just want to give a little love.
sure,
Marcus and I are huge fans. I'm sure we all are.
Yeah.
But that feels like an Eastbound kind of move. You know, like just grabbing someone who's otherwise, you know, like doing some custodial work and just getting
like get over here.
some gold on camera.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but you'd be amazed to find out that there is a very complex thing in the book that if I went into it cold thinking how to adapt it, you know, it's a testament again to Payne and Taylor that they knew to really slice it down. The custodian owns the house that Tracy and her mom rent.
What?
So they have a really close relationship. So in the book, he's more invested in exposing.
Yeah,
Not
not needed.
It's a little too small universe for me.
Not Marcus hates that. Marcus hates small worlds.
And that's the thing in the book,
He hates that
because
shit.
something about the nature of the book where that kind of irritating thing that I also share with you, Marcus, like it doesn't play as contrived because you really are kind of wrapped up in the almost paranoia of the confines of the school. But the almost literalism in many ways of what Payne does with visualizing George Washington Carver High, all that feels like it would just be you would be in disbelief. It would just feel too convoluted, and it's so much funnier that he's just petty.
Yeah.
And passive aggressive about Jim.
And he's a mystery, but he's just like
Yeah, like,
he's like I found my moment to get back at the guy who tossed the Chinese. Like just petty and vindictive.
So good. And that's very, again, I hate to keep using the Omaha word, but that's probably very Omahian.
Yeah.
You know, like
The edit is so great to help him in that moment too. Like
Totally.
it cuts to him last, and it's
Yeah.
like the joke lands perfectly.
It's so good. And shout out to, we'll talk more towards the end of the movie. Shout out to the kid who's passionately counting the votes, by the way.
Oh, I love him.
That performance is fucking off the charts. That kid deserves, get him an Oscar.
Is he a student? I'm assuming. Is it?
I
based on what we're
think
saying?
so. I think so. I'm not sure. But most of the people, I want to say in the film, like you were talking about just getting the janitor in the movie they're filming this movie not in the summertime. They're not filming it on off hours. They're filming it during school hours where there's other classes going. All the other classes are going on in the other rooms while they're filming this movie. And, they do have participation from the school. So a lot of all the extras you see are real students from the school, and it's incredible. So he, of course, Alexander Payne's got a great eye. So he's just picking out the best ones to have like speaking roles, and they're all great. They're all doing
My
a great
favorite
job.
is his inside, is Flick's inside guy.
I know.
Who's like, you're good.
So that
right?
kid
him.
was supposed to actually has a bigger storyline that they cut from the movie because he's supposed to be he's like the one helping her put up the signs and everything. He's actually the one who's in love with her. And that's the whole. They had a whole separate subplot that got
more
cut. Yeah, I know. This I could see a 3 hour.
A whole EU election universe.
Election universe. ECU.
One question I had about the difference between the book and the movie is like in the article the Scenario magazine. I remember they talked about how this is political satire, right? But that that the book, it seemed like, had more direct kind of allegorical, leanings. Like Tammy, for instance, was more like evidently more Perot like, and like Paul's more like clearly like a Reagan type figure. And I like that this movie has those satire. It's still very political, but they kind of removed out those obvious, except with the exception of just like the situation of it being an election and like a spoiler candidate. They remove those references, so it feels more timeless than eternal.
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't. Was that really part of the book, David? Like that, there's like you feel more of that direct references to what's going on in the politics at the time.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm glad you brought that aspect of it up because there was another anecdote I wanted to share, and it really ties into that as far as, the book, of course, was authored closer to the start of the 90s. And so it stands to reason that it was all very parallel to Clinton. Bush, Perot. And all those things you just noted, I think, are there in the book. And even in the book, it's still very subtle because the book does still try to kind of live beyond just that window in the 90s in American politics. But the really interesting thing about Paul, because I think, shout out to Chris Klein, his first film. And Chris Klein, who I really believe Chris Klein, after watching this movie, he had an incredible debut with this film. He was incredibly charming in the American Pie films, which I'd stand by. But I think Rollerball, the John McTiernan Rollerball, derailed him, and I think he could have had a James Franco kind of like run.
I got you.
Yeah.
So can we clarify a little thing here? From what I'm understanding, is this was shot over a year before it was released, finally in '99, right? And because what you're saying is this is his first film, and then that confuses me because I thought American Pie came out in tandem with Election, or even before, but this was shot at least a year before.
I think you're right, but Chris Klein was a discovery. And now what's interesting about, Alexander
of Payne's.
That
is news to me because I thought he was just, I thought, he's hired for like this. They were doing kind of a fun, cute thing of like, what if we use a guy from American Pie? And
No. He discovered him at one of the schools that they were touring to set the movie in. They were looking at different high schools. Well, just like Alexander Payne's new movie. The Holdovers has an incredible leading performance by a total random guy they discovered.
Spoiler.
No, sorry. No, but that's you'll read that in all the press. But anyway, but Chris Klein was just literally walked out of like the gym of this high school. And then I think the person who was giving them the tour at the school is like, Chris, you should meet Alexander Payne. He's working on a movie. And because Chris, I guess, was like the breakout star performer of their version of West Side Story. And and so they thought it would be good for him to meet a film director. And literally, he came and read for the role, and Alexander Payne just said he fucking nailed it every time.
He does,
and he fucking nailed it every time on set too. Like total confidence, no pressure of being in a movie, just killed it. And example of that, like Exhibit A, is the scene when he's giving his speech, and it's all one
so
long
good.
run-on sentence.
I know what it is to fight hard and win, like when we almost went to state last fall and I threw the fourth quarter pass against Westside for the touchdown that won the game by 3 points. I won't let you down.
Not run-on sentence. He's reading poorly. And no applause.
Amazing.
Well, I wanted to stay on Chris Klein for a moment, just because with Paul, like I think, you could of course do an hour on every character, but
I know. I'm sorry. Welcome to the clock. Sucks.
Look at that burn.
It's horrible.
Paul Metzler is such a great character in the film. He's a great character in the book, but I wanted to highlight 3 quick things. So, first thing is that great moment where you know how tight this race is, and he's in that ballot box, or in the ballot in the booth, and before he puts the ballot away, he votes for Tracy.
Yes.
In the book, he puts none of the above. Because in the book, Paul is very different. Paul is like, you know what? If I can't win this without my own vote, I don't deserve to win, because he is kind of like the, he's coming in with that sort of
good-natured
machismo of a jock.
Right.
But I think Payne had the foresight, especially with a performer like Chris Klein and his newness, that he's so sweet.
It's very sweet.
Because think about the fact that when that hilarious speech, it's a run-on sentence, and he literally has no idea, no ambitions at all as the president. But then he sees Jim at that like Olive Garden or like Denny's, and when he sits down, what's so touching about it, like the second or third time you watch it, is that he starts to come up with ideas about, we should do like this carnival, we should like have this dance.
Yes.
Like he's starting to invest himself for this one day he has, unbeknownst to him, of being a president.
Yeah.
And that's a sweetness that you don't really see in the book. And then the last thing is the generosity of Payne's filmmaking and writing. When they have to reveal to him that actually the election was rigged, he's in Spanish class. And they give the slip to the teacher, and she's like, "Señor Presidente."
Yeah, I love that.
He's like kind of shy.
Yeah.
And then she asks him,
Señor Presidente, ¿quieren verte en la oficina?
asks him, "Oh, you're needed at the office," in Spanish, and he's like, "Huh?"
What? Yeah.
I mean, you don't even need a joke in that beat, but
I know.
he still gives you a joke.
He's so good.
Right.
And
That's so good.
And one last on the just as a good segue maybe to talk about Tracy a little more too is again another thing that Alexander Payne just smartly corrected with the going from the source material to the movie is that I think Tracy is much more sexualized in the book, and she's much more of like kind of a Lolita, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
You mean that she's playing up her seductiveness and flirtation? Okay.
Yes,
that's
yes.
not there.
Yeah, and he felt that he wanted to make her more complex. Obviously, play that down, and almost play her like she is victimized by Dave. And I think that's interesting because when you first meet her in that scene at the pizza place and everything, like she is. There is a sweet side of her that you do get to see. You do see another side of her, and that's something that is, from what I gather, not evident in the portrayal of that character.
Does she get upset and tear up the posters in the book?
That would be a David question.
No. Or I mean, no. She does tear up the posters, but the instigation isn't that she trips and rips down her own poster.
Exactly. Right.
She just is full of rage and starts ripping Paul's posters down. And in the book, Tammy doesn't even find the posters. Tammy claims that she did it just to get to Catholic school quicker.
Right, but
Love it.
that's a big difference. That's what I was getting.
Yeah,
It was like
yeah.
she's not, because you're seeing a side of the character where she's just because when you're that kind of person, you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and it's like a steam pressure cooker, and she just loses it, and we see a moment of, I guess you'd call it a vulnerability on her part,
Yeah.
where it's just like everything's not perfect the way I am planning on it to be, and you see that she's failing. Everyone's failing in this, at least
Yeah.
our two principal people. You know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
And I appreciate that in the film, that she's given dimension, because she could be a very one-dimensional character if you don't play it right, and they did.
Yeah.
There's I pulled a good quote about what, Evan, to your point, what you're saying about Tracy's like sexuality and how it's presented
Sure.
in the film. And it's a quote from Payne from that Scenario magazine. He says, "What you see visiting high schools is that they're just kids. They're not the beautiful vixen sex pots that you see in teen movies.
Right.
That's completely fake.
Right.
Sure, there are some oversexed kids in high school, prematurely precocious sexual students, but really they're just kids."
Yeah.
And Tracy Flick is a kid. So
Yeah.
I thought that was a cool perspective.
Totally. And I also it just speaks to like how Alexander Payne knows this world and knows these characters so well, and how to bring them to life, and make them very three-dimensional and very like authentic. And like hearing him in the commentary talk about Matthew Broderick's character and coming up with how he's going to look and how he's going to feel. And it's like, just hearing Alexander Payne talk about, I was watching TV one night and a show came on that took place in a high school, and everybody in the film, all the teachers in the film had these perfect haircuts, and I just realized I didn't want to have Mr. McAllister have a perfect haircut. I wanted him to have an $8 haircut. All teachers have bad haircuts. And
Dude,
it's
how
like,
about his car?
no,
Shout
I
out to
know,
his
totally.
car.
Dirty.
Like they found, I'm sure the director was like, find the smallest car.
No, and you're right.
possible.
No, he
It's
also
like a
says,
rabbit or something.
he also says, like, you always see clean cars in any movie. The cars are always
Right.
clean because they're coming from the rental place.
Yeah.
And so it's like just those little details go so
It's filled
far.
with McDonald's wrappers.
It's great.
Well,
It's great.
to Tom's point about the hellscape post Little Miss Sunshine, I think the thing about Pain in general, but looking at Election, it's interesting when a filmmaker who really knows his shit, there's all these elements of realism that commit you to that reality, and yet the movie never loses a sense of its cinematic vocabulary. Like it isn't trying to be gritty; it's just trying to be truthful. Like realism versus truthfulness.
Yeah.
And I think the realism is what people are going for post 2004
Right.
and 5.
Right, because this has freeze frames. It has superimpositions. It's got wipes. It's got like a lot of sections where there's wipes, in the cutting and stuff.
No, and there's music cues,
Oh,
like
dude.
the banshee
Right.
cry.
Which
Music
is from
cue.
Navajo Joe. Shout out. Is what that's from. It's from Ennio Morricone, 1966
Oh, right,
spaghetti
yeah.
western. Amazing.
It's great.
The
It's a
throat
great
singing.
music
No,
drop.
but that's my big takeaway so far, David, is when you just describe it on paper, that's such a glorious combination that any real filmmaker would relish stewing in, which is a stylistic approach in a real world. You know what I mean? You don't have to bog down and everything's real, because first of all, it won't be real.
Right.
And also, by the way, what became stylized, just to do more of my soapbox complaining, is what wound up being stylization is simply golden hour, like a teenage girl skateboarding into a golden hour sunset.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's it.
Levi's
They're done.
commercial. Levi's commercial. Shit.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful losers.
Or just performances that get so boiled down to realism that they just get kind of boring. Because this is still like is like David saying, this is truthful,
Right.
But the performances are heightened in this because it's a comedy, But
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Super fun
Beautiful.
too. Super fun. So just real quick, I thought I'd just open this up to you guys too, is one of the other sort of obsessive details of this movie that Alexander Payne is putting into the visual language, the visual motifs, if you will, throughout this whole idea, is that he's creating a lot of imagery with Matthew Broderick's character and constantly obsessing over circles, okay? So when you see him in the beginning of the film, he's running around in a track, drawing the circles with the apples. There's so much hyper focus on him basically like running around in circles, spiraling, like he's wearing
running
ties.
in place.
Yeah.
Not running in place, but running in a circle. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but yeah, so he's got that.
Not going anywhere.
Right, but and he's just spiraling. Like he has a tie that is covered in circles. It's this visual metaphor that they keep. Every shot, you can notice it, even in the choreography of his movements when the camera's following him. It's in a circle and all this kind of stuff. Whereas they juxtapose that with the visual language of Tracy's character, and it's all straight lines, like harsh lines, like the lines of the of the chairs or the sticks of gum or like anything like that. Like she's very straight line and he's circle.
Or the pens,
right.
that are for the signing up. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a cool thing when he just keeps harping on it in the commentary.
Yeah.
And you really notice it.
I'll have to
Like,
rewatch.
holy shit.
I did notice in this time he's just the amount of times he's featured with garbage, like
that's
trash can, outside, inside. Garbage trucks follow him twice down the street. He's got trash in his car.
And his downfall is
the garbage. He keeps saying that too. He's like, this movie, I obsessed over garbage being in almost every shot. Like if any exterior shot, it's always garbage day. There's always garbage trash cans out in front of all the houses. You see garbage trucks all the time, driving on the street. And of course, like, her throwing away the posters. That plays a plot mechanic. It's all about
At the very
garbage.
beginning, she says, none of this would have ever happened had Mr. McAllister not meddled the way he did. And at that moment, he's throwing a piece of garbage into the trash can.
That's right. That's right. So it's
Omaha garbage.
Yeah. So it's just really cool. And one other funny thing too about Matthew Broderick, if we want to drill down on him, who's just fantastic in this movie. Something I couldn't fucking believe is Alexander Payne said that he had, at the time of making the movie, all the way up until the present, had never and has still never seen Ferris Bueller. He'd never seen it. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Had he seen anything by Matthew?
The Freshman.
I'm sure he's seen some things, but he didn't see
that.
He didn't
Project
see that.
X. He was really big into Project X.
No,
Monkey.
but I think that's interesting because I wonder if it would have changed the decision to go with him in this movie if that had colored it in a different way by seeing that movie.
I want to give a shout out to Matthew because he's one of the brighter spots in The Cable Guy. I think he's underrated. His 90s work.
We should do that sometime.
Is great.
Yeah, we should do that sometime. The Cable
I
Guy.
would do it. I would do that.
That'd
be like a something guilty pleasure.
Yeah, sure.
No, but he's very welcome when I see him on the screen. Because he just he's underutilized. I think still. He had a big thing with the producers, but we need more Matthew Broderick.
I know.
Shout out to his dad in Dog Day Afternoon. I don't think I realized that he was a Nepo baby until we were talking about his dad in Dog Day Afternoon. His dad, Matthew Broderick's dad, was an actor too, and he's in Dog Day.
Yeah, who is he?
John Broderick.
Well, who is he in the movie?
But
David,
who is
help
he
me
in the
out.
film?
I don't remember. He's like a cop or something. He's one of the cops.
Oh, I'll be darned. Okay.
Well, shout out to his wife, Tom. Shout out to his wife,
James Broderick.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah, he's
It's all coming together now.
the ice cold
I had no clue.
G-Man. Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
That's
Okay.
right.
Well, anyway, Matthew. One thing, just
Wait, David.
to hear that they didn't have the bee sting
Yeah.
in the novel is surprising. But then again, that is something that really pops on film in a cinematic way. Because like he looks inherently like you see it's like a wound, like he's in bad shape right
It's a great
then.
call.
And there's a visualization of his wound, and it's impossible to miss, and it's something that gets worse and festers. So that was masterful to choose to do that, I guess.
Great choice.
It's
on
his
Jim and,
festering inside and like something
Right.
that's motivating him to like be pushed to the
and
edge.
it's twitchy. It's like
Well, it's the bee sting is one of those things where it's so wafer thin how you can make it really lame, because if someone goes into it as a filmmaker and they want to make it like a physical manifestation of the rot inside, then you can sniff it out as a viewer. What I love about Payne is that and I think it's mentioned in the commentary, like it was initially something that he and his co-writer thought of as a joke, like, hey, what if he just gets stung by a bee when he's looking around for her?
Okay.
But he constantly is able to undercut moments of self-seriousness in a way that a really good satirist can. Because you need a lot of confidence to undercut moments of like real cinematic propulsion, like when the freeze frames we've mentioned before, but I was even thinking that really great slam cut to Broderick's watching the porn in his basement.
Oh.
He's drinking the Pepsi. He's thinking about what Tracy said about Coke.
Right.
He's looking at the football player in the porn video, and he's like, Paul. And then you just cut to this ridiculous stock footage of a skier falling to his death.
It's great.
And then that's a freeze frame too, and arrow Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so silly, but it's a confident silly.
So fun. You're right. Yeah, totally. And one thing about the bee sting too that's interesting, and this is a segue to maybe Evan's favorite character in the movie, or one of, is Linda, is his friend's wife.
You're Team Linda. Huh?
I am a big Linda fan in this movie.
She's a mystery.
Yeah, so crazy look, crazy, just amazing in this. But it's cool because when you're seeing Matthew Broderick with his wife, when they're trying to get pregnant and all those insane sequences, their house is portrayed very sterile and sort of like, white walled, boring. And then you look at Linda's house, and Alexander Payne calls it, she represents, or she has like, fecundity, around her, where there's plants growing and it's more fertile, and there's
a baby,
and you see life and flowers and plants like everywhere.
Interesting.
And then when he is about to meet her at the hotel, and he goes to the back right before he gets stung by the bee, you also see these shots of apples in the tree, again, going back to the circles and everything. Okay. And then it's kind of like a temptation metaphor, the sort of eating of the apple. Sure. And they actually did some early CGI stuff with where you see bees flying in front of the apples, and that's another kind of birds and the bees. There's bird sounds and then bee sounds.
Right, gotcha.
So I mean, he's
in the
really,
Garden of Eden. He's in his own weird backyard Omaha Garden of Eden.
Yes.
And of course, it comes to just immediately bite him in the ass.
Yes, in his eye,
stung.
Yeah. And
wow.
And the fucking montage too of him setting up the fucking hotel room is just fantastic.
Yeah, as Marcus indirectly referenced earlier. That's so powerful shit. No, like
it's the Rocky training montage of this movie.
Right.
It is
the cheap chocolate.
Yeah, the shopping at Walgreens for the
Walgreens chocolate.
Yeah,
like I said in that Scenario magazine, they really get into the ass washing moment, and so that's a big moment for me in the movie. But one thing they said was it's all based on a Red Fox routine. he had a joke called "You Gotta Wash Your Ass." So before
he
you
had
got
an entire album.
Oh, an album.
Wherein the title boldly on the cover was "You Gotta Wash Your Ass," and he's next to a donkey. So
amazing.
This is when Evan cuts to that.
Laugh.
Oh yeah. Right. Well, this is where Evan makes that the cold open.
There you go.
No, but yeah.
No. So what are you saying? Like that? Payne and Jim.
That's what the idea. That was the genesis of that
really?
idea. It was like before you go on
a
date,
those
you
guys.
gotta wash your ass.
Well, you know what he said too. He said Alexander Payne also said about I see it kind of as like ass and taint washing personally, but. That he said that that he's gotten a lot of comments and a lot of feedback from people specifically about that scene and how true that scene rings. And I
love that it lasts a beat longer than you would expect. And also Broderick has a lot of commitment to that moment.
He does. I know. Oh.
Furtive? That's not furtive. It's, he's frantic and frazzled.
Yeah.
And he's getting really spun out.
It's got
and
fervor.
that's kind of the peak of his frazzled, spun out moment.
It's
that's his moment.
Great. It's a great moment. Yeah. Oh my God. David, what else you got for us?
Well, I was also thinking there's two big epiphanies I had when I was really thinking about the book, thinking about the movie. The first of which is something that I do think was part of the design of how Tracy and Jim are kind of rivals throughout the film. And then the other thing I'll mention shortly before we run out of time. But one thing I haven't really, and I even went back and read some reviews, when the movie came out. I mean, that's the thing about this movie. It's always been liked. It's always been held in high esteem. And I think people mostly get it. But I think there is an ease by which you can watch this movie. It goes down so easy. It's just so smooth. It flows so well. And so I think one of the issues with movies like this is not the issue of the film, but that I think so many interesting details do get overlooked. Maybe I think on the Shining episode, I think Marcus referenced Rob Ager. But I would take like kind of the Rob Ager approach, not like a conspiracy theory. But one thing I haven't seen people mention as far as of all the relationships in the film, I haven't really seen people make the comparison that Jim is a version of Tracy that lost her or his mojo, because I think people get the sense that he's jealous of her.
Yeah.
But the thing that really opened up this time is the character that Evan was citing, the guy who's the counter for the votes and who's basically
MVP.
He's like an ally of Tracy's.
Yeah.
And he's a do-gooder. And there's this thing that even Alexander Payne said, that he always saw that character as like what Jim was before he became a teacher, before he got jaded.
Okay.
And then I'm kind of thinking about that wavelength and how there's an argument to be made that the reason why there's so much conflict between Jim and Tracy, and it's all very subtextual, is that Tracy innately doesn't like Jim because she fears becoming like Jim. She even explicitly has that montage of him doing all the 3 branches of government and how lame that is.
Yes.
And of course, the last time we see her in the movie, she's like with the senator.
I know.
But with Jim, he hates Tracy because, he's at a point of no return. And so obviously he's going to suss out the person who has the most potential. Because Tracy doesn't really have potential in the book. She's ambitious, but she's not maybe as committed as she's depicted by like Reese Witherspoon. I think that's
invariably raising her hand like that.
Yes,
that's
different.
Characterization is not so much in the book. Overeager achiever.
She's more arrogant. I think everyone in the book, including Paul, like they're more, and even Jim McAllister, those characters are all more arrogant in the book. And this leads into the second point as far as I think, Payne's entire filmography, it occurs to me, his characters are blissfully unaware. Like there's a lack of self-consciousness with his characters in every film of his that I think is one of his secret sauce things, that they're so oblivious that whether their narration is like the unreliable narrator, not because they're trying to mislead the audience, they don't even know what's going on in their own head.
Right, sure.
And I think, Tracy doesn't want the awareness of the fact that she could easily end up like Jim if she got knocked up, if she didn't go to college or, was in fact affected by her economic status.
Right.
So all these, things I think really color it in a very deep way if you're only looking at that part of it on a second or third watch.
That's really interesting in terms of like class too, because they are both from the same like class. The competition between them can be seen in terms of like a class thing too. Like they're both from the same economic stratus, right? The teacher and Tracy, but she's gonna rise up, and so he's like ready to pull her back down because he doesn't want someone. You don't want someone jumping up to a higher class if you weren't able to. So you pulled them back.
Well, he's bitter and kind of numb. In this routine. Actually,
and bored.
This leads to me. I'd like to talk about the ending a little bit. Let's just maybe stick with the legit, final true ending of the film for a moment. Like just one observation I always have when I watch it is it reminds me almost of the ending of The Omen. Just to refresh your memory is, it's like the parents die, his adoptive parents die, and then he's taken in by like the president of the United States. And the last time you see Damien, he's like smiling and he's being welcomed to the White House. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, that's why I'm referring to it. Right. So what I'm saying is, it's almost like the film and the Broderick character are seeing like this evil thing is now like rising in the ranks, for her nefarious deeds, and she's going to get higher and higher. And maybe she'll be President Flick, in a few years. Overly ambitious. It's kind of the fever dream people have about like Hillary Clinton and stuff like that. Like the overachieving ambition over everything,
and being threatened by that, and the male being threatened by that, which is a very of its time. I think for this movie, that's very of its time.
Well, it's funny. He accuses her of being so evil, but he's just completely depraved in all of his, behavior too. And
totally.
Just that central question that he asked at the beginning of the movie: what's the difference between moral and ethics?
Just going to say that.
What's the difference between morals and ethics anyway?
I was just going to say that is a huge overarching theme throughout the whole movie. I mean, that is it, right? And that's a huge parallel, I think, to what they're trying to also say metaphorically about politics is, this idea of the hypocrisy of, ethics and morals and everything. Because the actions, he's teaching the ethics and morals, and then what he's doing behind the scenes with Linda and everything. And then everybody cheating and, yeah.
So often, there's like sleazy politics, but then there's what I think is even more nefarious is people finding ways to justify their behavior for a greater good.
Sure.
So it's, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So I think he's one of those kind of people somewhat, where it's like, if I don't get in the way of a monster like her, like I have in my midst one of these monster people who are going to be so power hungry that they're going to rule the day and have no scruples themselves. So I am fighting the good fight if I cut some corners and trip them on their way up the ladder.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of rationalization and justification behavior because it's fitting their narrative. And like you're saying, he's highly not self-aware, and so he's going to wind up, doing all these things that, that he could explain to himself. But one thing I wanted to talk about the ending though was, is it a happy ending, more or less, for the Broderick character? Because I feel it is, because at least he's changed, and I don't think he's running in a circle quite. What do you guys think?
I think that the director thinks it is, at least, because that's why there is an alternate ending, is because the original ending didn't test well with audiences. So they were in the studio. MTV said, here, if you could make another ending, what would it be? Please go make one. Make a happier ending.
Right.
So I think they set out to make their version of what
their
happy
version
ending could
of
be.
that, a compromise.
Well, what do you think? Like, do you think that he's breaking this, this extreme situation happened where his life was forced to be changed, and do you think that's ultimately a good thing for him?
Or the pattern could repeat. Who knows?
Well, that's the thing. Well, it's hinted at because he's like at peace by seeing her.
Yeah, and then he's triggered.
There she is. That's okay. That goddamn motherfucker. And he throws the drink at her.
It's darkly comic.
That's true.
Yeah.
He is probably going to fall back on his patterns.
He's got a big
he's not going to learn a thing.
Yeah.
Because he sees that girl raising her hand, and it triggers him again.
It's all happening again.
Yeah.
Reoccurring.
I mean,
there's no happy.
I would expand that the point you're making, Tom, which is if you think about everyone's coda in the final few minutes, the only one who seems to be truly happy, like who ends on a genuinely happy note, is Tammy.
Yep.
Because Paul even is sort of like, well, I don't know, Lisa left me, and gotta do my dad's cement, business.
Yeah.
And you get the sense that Jim isn't wrong that Tracy probably is going to be miserable in her success. Because she's always going to be stressed out, and she's yelling at a bunch of people in the dorm.
And
love that.
And also Tammy's the most real. Like, she's keeping it the
Tammy's
most real.
in love.
Like,
it's the only love we see.
Like she's so authentic. She's being honest throughout the whole film, and I think that gives her a lot of power.
Well, there's a little wink for her too, though. She's like, and we're gonna be together forever, like her and Jennifer.
I love that. Right. I love that. And also we should shout out Reese Witherspoon too, because it is kind of like when you go back and you watch this now, it's like you just imagine you've seen many performances of hers like this, but up until that point,
Blonde.
well, I was about to say, up until that point, you hadn't, because before that she had sort of been in Cruel Intentions. She had been in fucking what's that?
Man in the Moon.
She had been in Freeway. She had been in these kind of like weird, creepy thriller performances.
I love her in that with Marky Mark, right?
Fear, yes,
Fear's
Fear.
Great.
So she's more like Cruel Intentions, Fear. And this really gave her the opportunity to really.
It was a juicy role for her
to be comedic.
She came out of the gate really strong, like in Man in the Moon when she was like 12 or whatever, which she was amazing, a really great performance. Not Man on the Moon, which is the worst movie of
favorite film.
I think that debut of hers, that was Mulligan, the director brother of the guy from Empty Nest, Richard Mulligan or Robert Mulligan. That was his last film.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this.
Like Man in the Moon.
So she's good at it.
Yes, she is. Yeah. But so it's just really cool to see, that this gave her that chance to really do that, and you see that in this movie.
I did want to very quickly say that another
take us home.
Very wild theory about Alexander Payne, and I encourage people to think about it because it's a lofty claim. But there's a kind of a religious aspect, I think, to even the title election, which I don't think is intentional. This is me reading into it, but when you think about election in Judeo-Christian terms, as far as those who are elect for certain positions, for like those God's elect, God's chosen, and what I find really interesting is that the entitlement that he addresses, which I think often can be often too simplified to like, oh, straight white males feel like they're entitled. But in truth, anybody can feel entitled within their own subgroup, within their own community.
Yep.
And I think that's definitely true in election. With the exception of Tammy, everyone feels like they're owed something. And there's this aspect too of, there's a great montage where everyone's praying, I believe, like the night before the election.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's
Great
great.
shots.
Yeah, and exactly, like overhead and
30 seconds.
For the listeners, if you're rewatching even just that particular scene, it's incredible how everyone's narration prayer sums up their character and sums up so many themes of the film.
Right.
Yes.
Really on the nose, but doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't,
It's really, really well done.
This is a phenomenal script. Like, hats off. It's a phenomenal script where everything works. And it doesn't feel like it's overly, tight and rigid. It's just but everything fits into place
It
perfectly.
looks easy. It flows.
Boom. All right. There you go. Congratulations.
Post-election blues, baby.
Totally.
Go.
Yeah. Oh my God. Those hours can be brutal. I think there was a lot left on the table there. But
we did a good job.
We did.
Serviceable,
But I mean, it's
coverage.
totally. But
learned a lot.
it's a really great film from a very fascinating year. As we're covering 99. And of course, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we should say, of course, go out and see Alexander Payne's new flick, man. His new flick. Pick his new flick, which is what the hell is it called? Holdovers. Holdovers.
I mean, and again, with respect to spoilers, another movie about a teacher and a student.
I know. Yeah. It does. It has that. It has that in common. But yeah, I was telling Tom this. It's not a spoiler, Tom. Don't worry, or anybody listening. But Dave and I had a chance to see the movie. I think last week or whatever, and this is a warm, blanky Christmas movie, but so go in knowing that, and you will have a great time. And hey, in 2023, it's really tough to see a movie that actually has a script, like an actual script.
Incredible.
And
I know.
We're
so malnourished.
We are.
That,
We're so malnourished. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, it's not cheating to just say this about Payne outside of election, but I mean, it's one of those examples where he's clearly an auteur.
Yeah.
His career now has lasted for almost 30 years. He's only made 8 films, which is an interesting, like he takes his time with every single film. And I think it's a testament to an auteur who hasn't gone wild.
Yeah, yeah.
Like in many ways, he hasn't really changed, but not in a like the craziest film he's made stylistically is Downsizing, which is the one before Holdovers, and that's an interesting failure. I actually like quite a bit of it, but it's just a real testament to an auteur of that generation, who hasn't lost his mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't do we call those magnolias. He doesn't have a magnolia.
He never magnolia,
which he could have after Sideways. He could have easily done.
Yeah,
totally.
He really has doubled down with every single film. Again, with the exception of Downsizing, but even then, he blew like $65 million of Paramount's money on a really 70s style everything you wanted to know about sex kind of romp.
Right. So anyway, check out Holdovers. It is 1 fucking hour certified, at least for me and David. So you should definitely go check it out. It's nice to see something.
Wouldn't it be funny if I hated it?
You might. No,
I won't.
Spoiler. No, I'm just kidding. All right, everybody. Well, we didn't really talk about
what's next week.
We didn't really talk about what film is next week. So Tom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you on the spot, and you know what the two options are, right? Do you remember what the two options were?
Options. Is this how we're playing it?
Well, we discussed
2 bullets in the chamber here.
Yes, we discussed which two.
Yeah, I do. I do. Yes.
So I'm going to put it. I'm going to put it to you to tell us right now, live on the air, which of those 2 movies you want to do next week. Which one is it going to be?
Okay.
And I
It's
don't
simple. I mentioned it earlier, being John Malkovich.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, so
Let's just keep the train rolling here.
okay, okay. All right, so next week, everybody get your rewatch in because I'm sure you've already seen it, but we're going to be getting into because we're keeping this 1999 train rolling. We're going to keep going. Let's talk about another interesting film from 1999. And Tom, what's One Fucking Hour and Being John Malkovich going to look like for us?
Oh, well, there's some real magic here. Like there's a lot of meeting of exciting people, like Spike Jonze, like off skateboard videos and music videos.
Yeah.
He brings his talent and his unique approach to feature film. Boom. That's inherently, like I want to see that. I'm curious. But then there's this crazy guy with this, script that looks impossible. This guy who wrote for like the Dana Carvey show, you've got Charlie Kaufman, and they come together, and they got Hollywood money, and it's a high concept. We were talking tonight about stylistic flourishes and interesting scripts, but this is like the script is a flourish itself. It's fanciful, and I'm always blown away by it. And it's also very funny, and it's just more of what I was saying earlier, which is like, it keeps me on my toes. I don't get bored because I don't think, for me, the worst is like just realizing the mechanics of like, oh, here comes the third act. And, oh, we're going to see this character again. This is going to be our new character, isn't it? Not just someone, asking for a cigarette, just like, fuck you, die. And this film is just like, I don't know what is going on. And, but also has emotionality.
Yeah.
It ends on this like high, strange, emotional note.
Yep.
And another fun guy around the same age doing a role, John Cusack, kind of an 80s boy.
Yep.
Like taking on this meaty role of quirkiness.
True. All right. So
we're going to need 5 minutes to talk about Cameron Diaz's wig, I think.
Okay. Sure. Oh, Tom, you're muted.
But I was just going to say it is.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Hello.
It is funny to think there's the Keanu, then Broderick, and Cusack. So whatever the fourth movie is, hopefully it's some.
We
young
got
lad
one.
From the...
There's one in there. There's definitely one in there.
Is there? Okay.
Oh, there is. Yeah. Okay. He had some roles in the 80s. He might not have been big.
No, but it's 80s boy. The boys in the 80s.
Yeah, coming to roost. Yeah. So, all right, everybody, get your pre-watch in. One Fucking Hour on Being John Malkovich next week. Of course, next week is Thanksgiving. So we do have to talk about when we're going to schedule and when we are going to film and tape that episode. So it might be a little off schedule. We don't know yet. But
when can people even watch it? Because they've got stuff going on.
Yeah, but there's no special episode about Eli Roth's Thanksgiving.
No, I'm sorry, David. There won't be.
You guys go have
go wild.
Have a feast.
Yeah, go wild. Go wild.
David's solo show.
Patreon episode.
How about you alone, David?
Talking to yourself
for an hour about Thanksgiving.
I'd release that. If anyone wants to see that, I'd release that. All right.
Like an Andy Warhol experiment.
People should vote. I'll do it.
Okay. Let us know in the comments if you want to see David Chien's solo show.
We'll solo?
Yeah.
For 2 hours.
Yeah. 24 hours. 24 hours.
Yeah. 24 hours.
Thanksgiving. There you go. All right, everybody.
Thanksgiving Day Marathon.
Yeah, perfect. 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 All right. Before we get out of here, one last shout out to the Patreon. Patreon.com/onefuckinghour. Sign up there if you want to check out our bonus episodes or perhaps David Chien's 24-hour marathon on the Thanksgiving movie.
Eli Roth's Thanksgiving.
Only live at the Patreon. So if you want to see that, patreon.com/onefuckinghour, or if you want to hear any of our feature-length audio commentaries.
Actually, if you want to hear it, you have to give up $10,000. It don't come easy. Right?
I won't see a penny of it though.
No, of course not.
Of course not.
It's a donation to us.
No, of course. That's straight in our pockets. But if you want to see that, or if you want to see any of the bonus material, bonus episodes that we've made or produced, check it out on patreon.com/onefuckinghour. And guys, we appreciate your support. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube and you want to sign up, but you rather watch the bonus content on YouTube, just click the join button under this video. Same price, same perks, same bullshit. All right, everybody. Let's
talk about how fun it was to have David Chien on an official One Fucking Hour.
Thanks, guys.
great to have you. You're smarter than all of us combined. So
Yes.
that's always frightening.
It's a little scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever we get a smart guest, it's like, oh, Christ.
He's like the Tracy of the show.
Yeah.
Gotta bring cupcakes next time.
You have to tone that smartness down a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta just
we don't
curb
look
that
so
a little. I know, hit like a smart guy in the show.
Some machine jokes next
Yeah.
time.
All right, everybody. Well, David, we can't leave you without your what?
Oh, moment?
All right, everybody. Have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you for Being John Malkovich. All right, take care. See you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
When Matthew Broderick is busted from having thrown the election, he enters the principal's office and sees all the people gathered there who know he's guilty.
Mr. McAllister, I hope you can help us clear something up.
He wanted to cut it like the end sequence of The Good and the Bad and the Ugly, with holding on the faces for a really long time. And I was like, no, let's cut it really fast and build to a climax.
And I didn't want to do that. I thought it was cheesy and would call too much attention to itself.
He just wouldn't want to do it. He wouldn't want to put it in the movie like that. So finally I said, I'll pay you $25.
And I said, no, let's not do that.
I go, okay, 50.
And I said, 75.
He even gave me an invoice, and it says I owe him $75. So I paid him $75 to cut it in.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That was wicked, man.